My name is Wamish. My first name is Ken Watts. I'm the Vice President of the Nuu-chah-nulth Tribal Council, and just to help share a bit of what was happening this morning, we took care of some protocol and some business of the Nuu-chah-nulth and the way we do business. And first and foremost, we thank the Musqueam people and Chief Sparrow for allowing us to do this in their territory. Cliff wanted to share some of the words that he shared with you today. And in that, he wanted to speak on behalf of our Hatwea. These are our hereditary chiefs of the 5 Nuu-chah-nulth nations of Ploquet, Ahousaht, Nuu-chah-nulth, Ihatasit, and as well as the Heshquit First Nation. They wanted to be here and stand here today and say that they put forward reasonable fishing plans to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Government of Canada. Since 2009, the 5 nations in the BC Supreme Court won the right to fish and sell all species of fish. We're now 7 years later, and the nations haven't reached an agreement with the Government of Canada, and they've said enough is enough, that they want to sit down, and they've always been willing to negotiate with the nations, or the nations have been willing to negotiate with Canada. So they've wanted to stand up here, and the role and the responsibility and our Hatwea have, and the right that they have, that they've shared with our citizens to fish. As you may see, the name here is Takwiak. That means permission from the chiefs, and those chiefs have given permission to our fishers to go there. So I just wanted to share a bit about what Wiccaninish from Ahousaht has said today, and then I'll just go through the agenda, but we'll allow our speakers to come up here and sit up here and say a few words. But first I want to allow Chief Wayne Sparrow just to say a few words as we're in here in this beautiful territory. And again, on behalf of Nuu-chah-nulth, we thank you for allowing us here.
On behalf of our community, Chief Wayne Sparrow, traditional name is Yoke, stand behind you, support you. I know from the Sparrow case and we have the same issues. I want to thank our national leader and our regional leaders to hear the voices that they have concern. We have the exact same concern in Musqueam, stemming from the Sparrow case. So we look at you, National Chief, to support us and do what we can. And I also want to acknowledge all our elders and guests that are here supporting our First Nations, and I want to thank you. My hands raised up, and it's a privilege and honor to have this taking place here. Musqueam was one of the first ones with the Sparrow case, and to have these cases come behind and then support all of our First Nations and our rights. So on behalf of our community, I want to thank each and every one of you.
Thank you. So if we could ask National Chief Perry Bellegarde to come and sit down, as well as we have Grand Chief Stuart Phillip from the Union of BC Indian Chiefs over up here somewhere. And we have Grand Chief Ed John from the First Nation Summit. And we have our lead negotiators from our nations. We have Cliff Hatleo from Ahousaht, Regional Chief Shane Gottfredson. If you could take a seat. And we have Francis Frank. I'm not too sure where Francis is hiding. So we have Francis Frank, our lead negotiator for Ploquet. So once again, I want to acknowledge Musqueam people for allowing us to do this in their territory, and thank our First Nations Leadership Council for being here today. Just to give you a bit of a rundown of the plans for today, we'll go right to National Chief Perry Bellegarde, followed by Regional Chief Shane Gottfredson, Grand Chief Ed John, and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip. And then our lead negotiators will be providing some comments as well, Francis Frank and Cliff Hatleo. So once again, I'll hand the floor over to National Chief Perry Bellegarde to share his thoughts with us. So thank you again, National Chief, for coming here.
Thanks, Ken. Nista Ninaskamun. Kinanaskum tinua kakia no demtik no akumagnak kakia kiteyak okimawak anuts tapoya mia se kanu tainan semanto kinanaskumtin Musqueam kinanaskumtin Nuu-chah-nulth kinanaskumtin wa okimawak. Ista a little bit in Crete, my friends, my relatives. I'm very happy to be here, honored to be here, shake hands with everyone here. I acknowledge the Creator for this day. I acknowledge the Musqueam leadership, Chief Wayne, for having the gathering here and hosting this gathering here. Acknowledging the leadership from the Nuu-chah-nulth, the leadership, the chiefs. Acknowledging Elder Cliff for his prayer, his words. welcoming here. All the leaders here, Ogimawak, the chiefs I lift up here, colleagues around this table. For us, again, to be here to support the leadership from Nuu-chah-nulth, it's something that we say they've already won. It's already been recognized. You know, to see this happening now again in 2016, in the year of reconciliation, in the year of the nation-to-nation relationship, it's like we're going backwards, not forwards. And it's extremely frustrating for us as Indigenous peoples to see this happening now. As Indigenous peoples, we say we have rights, and one of the most important rights is the right to self-determination. That right to self-determination. And we've heard very clearly the leadership have exercised from the Nuu-chah-nulth leadership. They've given their laws, and they've allowed their fishermen, their fisher peoples, to go out to harvest. They've made their law. It's time for that respect to be shown. That's time now for that law to be recognized, to go forward if we want to bring about reconciliation in Canada. From our Assembly of First Nations, we say we're here to help, to support, politically, legally, whatever we have to do to make sure that these rights are recognized going forward. The message is clear and simple. We don't want to go backwards. The former government spent $106 million fighting Aboriginal rights, fighting inherent rights, fighting treaty rights. Let's not make the same mistake twice when all these rights are recognized by ourselves, but within Canada's Constitution. Existing Aboriginal rights and treaty rights are recognized and affirmed. So we need to go forward. And so we're here now as AFN. I'm very honored to be sitting with these leaders here, long-time rights advocates, to make sure that this is rectified. It's about sharing the land and resource wealth, no question. But First Nations law, First Nations jurisdiction is really needs to come to the forefront. That's what this is about. And if it's Department of Fisheries and Oceans, if it's Carolyn Bennett, if it's the Prime Minister, if it's Minister Jody, they've got to be brought to the table and to make sure that this, again, no longer continues in 2016. So I'll say that much for now. And I'm here on this territory to add our energy, our support, our spirit, because this is all about working together, but it's all about reconciliation and rights recognition. And that's why we're here.
Thank you, National Chief Perry Bellegarde of the Assembly of First Nations. Next, we'll go to Regional Chief Shane Gottfredson of the BC Assembly of First Nations.
Wayne Glotton, Cleo, Cookby and Speary and Squess, and to Kamloops. First of all, would like to acknowledge Chief Wayne Sparrow, your elders, your people, and the ancestors of this territory that we're on today. I want to acknowledge the Hatwia, the hereditary chiefs that we're standing with today. And of course, I want to thank my brother Cliff for his strong words and reminding us of our teachings by speaking in our language today. I'm very honored to be a part of the press release today to sit at this table with our leadership. We have our National Chief here, our Leadership Council of British Columbia, but most of all, we have the people of the land that we are here with today as well. I'm here to express my support to the Nuu-chah-nulth Nation, who have been battling the Government of Canada and DFO since 2009 to have their commercial fishing rights recognized and accepted. I'm here today on behalf of the First Nations of British Columbia that I represent, who are concerned that the government continues to ignore court decisions from the BC Supreme Court, the BC Court of Appeal, and even the Supreme Court of Canada that say these nations have established the right to commercially fish. Even though these decisions are in favor of the nation and have come from three different levels of courts in this country, including the highest court in Canada, the DFO has continued to apply the very same policies in the same ways that the courts have said infringe on the rights of these nations. The nations have spent much time, money, and energy in developing sustainable proposals that have been informed by the international experts, biologists, fishermen, elders, to make sure that the commercial fishing can continue to be a viable resource for the communities well into the future. Canada must fulfill its obligation and requirements under the United Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People and its own Constitution. Aboriginal rights must be respected and upheld because they are inherent rights of First Nations, and also because these rights were ordered to be recognized and respected by the courts in this country. Let us not forget what we are fighting for. We want to ensure that our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren can continue to exercise their rights as their ancestors have done in their territory since millennium. The Trudeau government has made a commitment that the relationship that the government has with us is central, that no other relationship is more important than the relationship of First Nations people in this country. So let's call upon the government to take action now and breathe life into the commitment. First Nations cannot continue to go to court for the benefit of the next seven generations. As we've heard in the Assembly today with the First Nations Summit, that we need action now. So we call upon the government to support the rights of the Nuu-chah-nulth and their fishing rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Regional Chief. Next we have Grand Chief Ed John of the First Nations Summit.
Erechu masi no tas ninja maskoim bekeo. Tlanauts os dilndi hun chan hoyat alta kerewa dai masi nyaresni. Wanted to begin by acknowledging Chief Sparrow from this community and his welcome here to all of us and how important it is. And I'm going to come back to that. I'd like to acknowledge Cliff Atleo for your comments in your language and the importance of using the language, connecting us back to who we are as Indigenous peoples. My community is, you take this river right here, just outside of this hall, and you follow it right up to the very top end, and that's where my villages are. And we rely on the salmon in this province as well as all other First Nations. Today marks the first anniversary of the federal election 1 year ago when the Liberal Party was elected, and they made many significant promises to our community prior to the election and since. Now we need to see on these land and resource related issues there have been a significant gap in implementing the rights that have been determined in so many court cases across this country. Chief Sparrow talked about the Sparrow case, 1990, and they said it's not implemented yet. 1990, that's 26 years ago. This case that the chiefs, the hereditary chiefs, I want to raise my hands and acknowledge the chiefs who have made very important decisions, and the responsibilities that you have to your land and to make decisions about your lands and territories that you have inherited from your ancestors, as we all have, but the responsibilities that you have to care for it under the laws of your people and to protect it as you've been instructed. I want to acknowledge that as we sit and talk with governments. I think that in the absence of any agreement, the chiefs here have made decisions, and they have every right to do so under Canadian law and under international law. The Government of Canada has been intransigent. They've been reluctant to make agreements with the Nuu-chah-nulth people. This case that we're talking about was decided in 2009. That was 7 years ago. Since then, they've been to the Supreme Court of Canada twice. They've been to the BC Court of Appeal twice on these same issues, and they've won these same issues, and the decisions have come down in their favor. And yet now the communities have been spending about another 115 days in the courts because the Government of Canada is saying, well, you may have commercial right to fish and sell your products, but we have a right to infringe on your rights. That's 115 days, and their final days of arguments this week in the courts in downtown Vancouver. So it comes down to this, about the honor of the Crown and the importance of the honor of the Crown. How much more do you need? What else is it that First Nations are required? How do you respect the rule of law? In a democracy, we have the rule of law. You respect the rule of law. Otherwise, your democracy means it's going to fall apart. It's not going to mean much. The rule of law applies on the rights that have been established through the courts, fairly, through expert opinion, through evidence, and the courts have landed on the side of the Nuu-chah-nulth people. Where is the honor of the Crown? And I think that's what I would like to say, and to stand with the Nuu-chah-nulth people today as they stand for the rights of their people. And if my view is that if there is no agreement with Canada, then what steps do the Nuu-chah-nulth people take? They have been given the right. The courts have recognized their right to fish, and I expect that now they will exercise their own laws when they decide, and they've already done that. They've taken the steps necessary for their people to go fishing in accordance with the tradition and the laws of their people that they've inherited and have exercised for countless generations. So thank you, Wamish, for inviting me to speak here, to the Hatwia, to the chiefs. Kwayalak Chief, the hereditary chief name that was given to me by your colleague, the late Nielsen Kitla. I stand with you with complete honor of the work that you're undertaking, and to the president of the Nuu-chah-nulth Tribal Council, as well as the vice president. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grand Chief Ed John. Next we have Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, President of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs.
Roy Haskell held Peace Seal, Esquis Asiut. I want to begin by acknowledging Chief Wayne Sparrow. It's a privilege to be in this beautiful building once again. I also want to acknowledge the Hatwia of the Nuu-chah-nulth people. And I want to say, on the one hand, I'm very honored and very proud to stand in solidarity on behalf of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs with the Nuu-chah-nulth people. We've been standing at their side for the last 7 years, and without question will continue to offer that political support, that whatever legal support we can offer, and whatever physical support on the ground or on the water that may become necessary as we move forward with this issue. I can recall the Supreme Court victory. I recall the celebration. It was incredible. For the first time, we had achieved such an important victory of actually going back to a point in time where we would be able to have a commercial fishery. It was an incredible victory that was celebrated right across this country. And it's bitterly disappointing 7 years later to be still fighting with the Government of Canada, fighting with DFO, and continuing that fight that we had with the Harper government. 1 year ago today, the winds of change blew across this country, and those winds of change blew the strongest in our Aboriginal communities. Our people went out in unprecedented numbers to oust the Harper government and everything that repressive regime represented, and we voted for the Trudeau government based on the promises that were made during the election campaign of the importance of the relationship with Indigenous peoples. And here we are a year later, still fighting the same battles, the same fights in the courts that we had with the previous Harper government. It's absolutely disappointing, It's completely unacceptable for the Trudeau government to continue to stonewall this issue. As you've heard, the Nuu-chah-nulth people have offered numerous fishing plans based on traditional knowledge, based on science, very reasonable proposals, and they've all been rejected. Absolutely, totally unacceptable. So whatever the future may hold for the Nuu-chah-nulth people led by their Hawaii, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs will definitely be part of that fight, and will stand in solidarity with everyone you see at this table. What you're looking at today is the emerging face of the relationship between the Trudeau government and the Indigenous peoples of this country, and I suggest that we're heading back into a very litigious relationship and a very conflictual relationship. So again, it's an honor to be here today to once again demonstrate our solidarity with the Nuu-chah-nulth people. Why? Lim Lim.
Thank you, Grand Chief Stewart Phillip. We'll have some closing comments from our lead negotiators, but before we do, just to help contextualize everything, as mentioned in 2009, the Five Nations, otherwise known as Takuak, as you can see here, won the right to fish and sell all species of fish. They put forward various fishing plans covering over 24 species, and to date the Department of Fisheries and Oceans have only negotiated for 2 species. So our nations have found it very frustrating when the Prime Minister of this country has gone around and said that no relationship is more important than that with Indigenous peoples, and yet at the same time the bureaucracy of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans continually ignores the rights of the Nuu-chah-nulth nations, the 5 Nuu-chah-nulth nations. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans have tried to limit the rights of the 5 nations as much as they could, and they're not willing to negotiate. And at the same time, Canada's legal team has put forward conservative arguments, much like the previous government, basically trying to minimize the right of the 5 nations, and our nations have said enough is enough. Recently, on September 23rd, they actually asked the Regional Director General, Rebecca Reed of DFO, to leave the meeting because they were tired of meeting for the sake of meeting. They've always committed to sitting down and negotiate, and they want the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the Prime Minister to step up and say, now is the time to negotiate. The courts directed you back in 2009 to negotiate with the 5 nations. They gave them 2 years. Well, it's 7 years later and we still don't have an agreement. So just to help contextualize where we're at in this point in time, and I'll let our chief negotiators of two of the nations provide some closing comments from their perspective. So we have Wickeninish, Cliff Atleo, and Francis Frank. So.
Thank you.
You can sit here.
Good afternoon. My name is Cleo. I'm from the Cleo First Nations in Tofino, and I act as the lead negotiator for my Hawaii. Sitting to my immediate right is Nuu-chah-nulth, one of my principals. First of all, I want to acknowledge Musqueam, Chief Wayne Sparrow. It's actually quite appropriate that in 2006 we came to Musqueam asking permission of Chief Grant at the time to fight this very battle, this very legal battle, and permission was granted, and since that time we've won that battle, we've won the war, and we've won the battle. My role primarily has been as a lead negotiator as part of the 5 nations. Kenny, our Vice President, appropriately summarized that on September 23rd we were in negotiations, And this is after 7 years of courts instructing us to go away in 2009 to try to reach a negotiated agreement. 7 years later, it's sad to report that we're no further ahead than we were in 2009. As a lead negotiator, I think we reached our boiling point on September 23rd, and we dismissed the Regional Director General along with her negotiating team because we were tired. We were tired of the DOJ's obstructionist instructions to their legal team to argue positions that are contrary to political positions that are being bandied about by Prime Minister Trudeau and also the Minister of Justice. We were also tired of fighting battles that we've won. So we won in 2009 and we continue to fight. As we sit here, the justification trial continues. And there's some very, very offensive arguments being filed by the Department of Justice that is contrary to what the negotiations are to be about. So we grew tired of that game. We grew tired of, because our right, it's constitutionally recognized now. It's a recognized, constitutionally protected right. So we negotiated and tried to negotiate from that standpoint that it's given the legal weight that it merits and that it deserves. Sadly and unfortunately, we found consistently that we still live in the shadows of Prime Minister, the previous government, Harper's shadow, as well as Shea's instructions was deny, deny, deny. So we're tired of that game. The negotiating team continued with that style. And so we said enough is enough on September 23rd. We're also tired of being the little kid that's sitting on the side of the dining room table waiting for the crumbs to be thrown our way. Why? Because the government currently operates under a coast-wide framework allocation that gives priority and precedence to other sectors over ourselves, and we grew tired of that. We said enough is enough. So that brings us to where we are, and we do want to certainly acknowledge our national chief, our regional chief, and all other leaders from the summit and UBCIC for being here, standing in unison with our Hotwek, because it means a lot to us. It's really a sad state when we have to continuously find ourselves spending millions and millions and millions of dollars having to prove that we actually have a right to exist here and we have a right to benefit from generating our own economy. That's all our fishers want. When they gave me instructions as a negotiator, it was get us out on the water. We just want to generate a moderate living for our people. That's all we're asking. Unfortunately, we found nothing but resistance by the negotiating team, which is not consistent with the political platitudes that are being waved about by the Prime Minister.
Canadish is my name from Ahousen, and I just want to simply add that one of our key problems is other sectors in the industry that sell aquatic resources. The framework allocation agreement protects their share. And before we went to court, we came with plans that was willing to share. The owners willing to share. We have unresolved issues that have a lot to do with ownership. And you know, it almost seems obvious that it doesn't matter what your color is in terms of governance, that they protect their own. And it's incredibly frustrating. And I happen to be old enough to remember when every community on the coast was independent, self-sustaining, healthy children, healthy families, healthy communities. I saw that. I saw that when we built our own homes. How did we do that? We went and fished. We went and trapped. We looked after ourselves, like the responsibility of a Hotwek is, to look after his Hahoti. That's why they stand up the way they do. That's why they say enough is enough. It seems like we're not going to be able to get cooperation from the government, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. So what we're after is a way of life. That wasn't that long ago, maybe 55 years ago. But I saw that day, and I fondly remember those days where we generated enough of an economy and income to be able to look after ourselves and look after the community. I remember my stepdad, he always said, you bring this halibut to so-and-so, you bring this salmon to so-and-so. We looked after the whole community. And all we want to do is get back to that. You know, the last point I want to make is that on the coast, when the Reserve Commission came around, they said, because you depend on the ocean, you don't need much land. So they created these little dots all up and down the coast, noticeably different than inland reservations, because we depended on the sea. And we're reminding the government, don't forget why we have little pieces of land. Actually, we had big pieces of land. That's still ours. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucas. So we'll just have the last comment for our President Deb Foxcroft. We'll sing the Nuu-chah-nulth song, and then while that's happening, if any of our presenters have time with the media, you can go ahead and have Q&A on a side discussion with them. But okay, we'll close with Deb Foxcroft, and then just a bit of protocol. So
Cheryl Casbier. Didn't intend to look over you, Cheryl. You're sitting rather big back there. And thank you for your witness.
is he here?
I wanted to say thank you. Thank you to the Musqueam people for having us here. We appreciate doing this business on your land, having your support of your people and your ancestors here. We know ours are standing with us on this very important day. I just wanted to acknowledge all of the leaders that are here, that stood before us and stand beside us to support us. As everybody was saying, enough is enough. We're tired. Our chiefs have been very patient, and I myself, as a leader, get tired of always saying we have to have this positive relationship with government and always have to be nice. Well, we're tired of being nice. We want to move forward and ensure that we can implement and get our fishers and people on the water fishing like we did thousands of years ago. That we can support our children and our families and our nations to ensure that we have the resources that we need to feed our families, to support our communities, and we want to move forward today. I know that, as everybody said, there's been millions of dollars that have been spent of taxpayers' money, Canadians' money, on these court cases. All of those thousands of dollars, they could be implementing these court cases, our fisheries, Takwiak, implementing those into the communities, and also supporting our families and communities with those taxpayers' dollars so that we can make a better place for our communities and all of our Nuu-chah-nulth people. Cleo.
Thank you. Just one more protocol piece.
Robert Phillips, we did not forget. You have to run up.
So once again, thank you everybody for coming. We're going to end with the Nuu-chah-nulth song, and while that's happening, some of our representatives that are here for the media, they can have side interviews with them. So once again, on behalf of Nuu-chah-nulth, thank you, the Musqueam people. Chu, Klako, Klako.
song is a warrior song from our head chief's house. A suite of at least 3 or 4 warrior songs provided to the Nuu-chah-nulth people to lift up your spirit, to be strong. It says, we are of the Thunderbird clan. We will not be defeated.